Hi, welcome to another episode of Coffee HEMA with me, Jamie McKeever. As you can see, I've decided to do this from outside because it's a gorgeous day and why not take advantage of it for a change. So today's topic, I wanted to talk about beginners courses. I have a beginners intake starting today. And I wanted to talk a bit about why I think it's a good idea to split beginners separately from your regular students. And my first club didn't do this. My first club, London Sword and Dagger Club, had beginners come in on a drop-in basis, and they would be mixed in with the regular classes. In fact, the instructor would encourage the more advanced students to pair up with the beginners and sort of semi-coach them as part of the exercises. And I think this is a really bad idea, both from a perspective of the beginners and also from the experienced students. And basically for the last 4 or 5 years, even before the pandemic, I started splitting out beginners intakes as well because of sort of having to throttle the people coming in. But why is it a bad idea? Well, I mentioned before that all the exercises that I have, I like to have some kind of variation within them to allow students to flex up or down as required by their personal needs. And if you have two students with similar abilities, they'll be able to kind of come up to a protocol which kind of works for both of them. And the bigger the difference between their abilities, the harder it's going to be to find something which is sort of at the edge of development, sort of just pushing them outside the comfort zone for both. Either they'll be way out there in the comfort zone and not learning, or they will be way too far into their comfort zone and not learning. And whether you have these variations or not, the same kind of thing is true, which is that the needs of your advanced students, or your just regular students who've been there for sort of 3 or 4 weeks, and the needs of a brand new beginner who's never held a sword are very, very different. As a result, it becomes harder for you to create a learning environment by whatever method that you want that is useful for both of them. And it is going to hurt the regular students because they're going to plateau if they are going over things that are kind of pitched for beginners. Over and over again, they're going to plateau earlier because they're not going to be getting the sort of the next stage that they need. And if you are pushing it sort of to the other end of the scale, then beginners will kind of be thrown in the deep end and again not develop the fundamentals that they need, and kind of essentially not working through things there. So obviously the level that you can do this and the ability you can do this will depend on lots of practicalities in terms of like instructors and space and equipment and all this kind of stuff. But as far as possible, it is a good idea to keep your beginners and your regular students, and I say regular, not advanced here, because I'm talking, a few weeks in, is a very different to having to hold a sword for the first time. But it's good to keep them separate. The beginners will learn better from working with their peers, working at the pace that kind of matches to them, really kind of exploring the basics of it, and sort of going that kind of back and forth within them, and not feeling like they're holding back a more advanced student that needs kind of some other kind of development, so that they will develop faster. And the advanced students, when they are paired with beginners, tend to fall in the trap of thinking of themselves as coaches rather than students. They tend to kind of hold back, they tend to simplify what they're doing, they tend to over-explain all of these, which are both hurting their training because they're spending more time explaining the training, and actually hurting, again, the beginner's training, because people learn better by doing rather than being told what to do. But practicalities do, as I say, get in the way. And if you don't have multiple teachers and you don't have like lots of space, what do you do? At a minimum, I would suggest avoiding having drop-in sessions for beginners, as in like he's running a course and the beginner says, I want to come along. You say, yeah, fine, come along, let's class. Switch to having defined beginners intakes, could be, for instance, at the start of the month. And using that to make sure that you're capturing the very basics of here's how to stand, here's how to hold a sword, here's how to train safely, right? All in one go, rather than explaining it maybe every single class if you've got a drop-in beginner every class. Have some sort of exercise that the advanced regular students can just get on with while you're doing that. if you're doing have this drop-in sessions. So some basic like power post drill or something like that, you can just say to them, look, I just want you to get on with this drill. We'll rejoin as a whole class in 20 minutes, right? Once I've gone through the basics with my beginners, and then have some kind of formal class if you are going to combine them, even in that first week. And if you are having a combined class, make sure that the regular students are paired with regular students and beginners are paired with beginners. As I say, both sets rather, will learn better if you do this. Better still if you can have a completely separate beginners intake, that runs for a defined period of time. Our beginners intake is 7 weeks. Right now, because of practicalities, what we do is we have them distinct, or we try and have them into separate groups for the first 4 weeks of those, and then the last 3 weeks of those we go to a combined class where there's sort of variations that allow the advanced students to ramp up the exercises, and the beginners to do them kind of slower. The nature of where we do that split means that actually the advanced students are getting some quite useful reminders, at least, even if they are repeating those on a normally, because we have 2 nights, so normally if they're doing one night, they'll be repeating that every kind of 3 months or so, which isn't too bad. And the final thing I would say is that if you do get a situation where you have to pair advanced students and beginners as an instructor, try and make sure that the advanced student is not over-explaining to the beginner, right? It can be both, it's both directly detrimental to their training because they're not actually swinging a sword, but also can be quite disheartening if they're being overcorrected all the time. So make sure that they're not over-explaining, and then also give the advanced students some kind of variation that they can do, while still operating at a pace and a level that the beginner is comfortable with. So things that they're varying themselves could be, starting further out of measure, varying the guard more, trying to make sure that they're coming to the same thing for a bunch of different routes, and essentially structuring it that way. But as I say, in summary, make sure that you are not following the trap of mixing your regular and your beginner students too early, because it will hurt both of their training. Thanks for watching.